Sustainable You is a casual, interactive, yet informative series detailing and cataloging the sustainability experience. Moreover, this is a short podcast docuseries detailing the thoughts and experiences of passionate advocates towards all things eco-friendly. Our journey is to know how and why understanding sustainable development towards the triple bottom line of people, profit, and planet can contribute to a more mindful, holistic, and inclusive world. Specifically, this podcast showcases what makes you a changemaker, innovator, and transformer as you tackle sustainability challenges for current and future generations to resolve those so-called wicked problems. So for today's episode, we took a stylish and techno turn in which we explore sustainable fashion and artificial intelligence by sitting down for an insightful convo with OpenWardrobe AI's founder, Julia Dietmar. As an AI-powered digital wardrobe and outfit planning tool, also known as OpenWardrobe, it helps users organize their belongings, put together looks, and even choose more eco-friendly items. By uploading or taking pictures of clothing, it digitizes your closets, classifies them, and provides styling tips and outfit recommendations, and it even schedules outfits according to the weather and calendar. By uploading pictures of your garments, users can build a virtual closet that the software can organize by color, neckline, pattern, style, and occasion. It genuinely integrates pieces from your digital wardrobe and makes these outfit recommendations based on future events and personal style preferences. By assisting users to become more conscious consumers and utilizing their existing garment collection and making informed purchasing decisions, the app itself advocates for more mindfulness and minimalism. So, for all you fashionistas out there, stay tuned to learn more. Do you want to give us an introduction of who you are and what you do for OpenWardrobe as the CEO, and you can share more?
Yes, absolutely. So OpenWardrobe is a platform that we started about 4 years ago. It's a platform that helps consumers, fashion consumers specifically, to dress more mindfully. We provide tools, we provide very practical education, and we provide ways for people to kind of make better decisions about not just what they wear, but how they buy clothing as well. And it's all designed to really help prolong the life cycle of clothing, help people use what they already have before the purchase so that the returns are decreased as well. Well, the word I picked from your list is probably serious or bold. Maybe some people would describe that.
Okay.
I wish it was more like naughty or quirky, but not really. It doesn't fit.
Okay. And why did you pick that? I'm assuming you're a fashion designer as well?
I'm not a designer at all. I have a design background. I have an engineering background. So I came into this from the data side and engineering side. So it's really all about kind of looking at being very methodical and very pragmatic. As from the list that you gave me, those two fit a little bit better than everything else.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for sharing. I don't think I've gotten that, but that makes sense. Bold and those kind of words that you pick because, you said you're an engineer. And you work in fashion tech, so that makes sense. And do you want to give us an introduction of who you are and what you do for OpenWardrobe as the CEO, and you can share more? Okay, interesting. So it's really about conscious consumerism and mindfulness and minimalism, kind of the transition we see in the industry towards sustainable fashion. So
yeah, absolutely.
That's really cool. Great. And then just to get to know you a little bit more. So the next question is, what makes you uncertain and what makes you curious?
Well, let's start with curious first, because all these new technologies that are coming up with AI, and I do understand concerns from people about jobs, but I don't think it's going to really impact jobs. It's going to really change, impact in a way that they're not going to be lost. They're just going to change. The nature is going to change. Just how we saw with internet, some jobs disappeared, but others appeared, right? Like 15 years ago, there was no such job as a social media manager, right?
Right.
It started kind of very relatively recently with social media and internet. So same will happen with AI, right? So there are going to be different types of jobs. So that's where the curiosity is sparking from, like where we are going to see this shift. And we're using AI. We have been using AI in our everyday lives for years, and most people just don't realize it.
Right.
That it's part of everything that we do, or many things that we do. But now it's becoming a lot more prominent, right? With LLMs becoming a lot more prominent, and with ChatGPT and creating all these wonderful apps. So it's definitely proliferating throughout our lives. So curiosity is really like, where is it going to go? Are we actually going to have general intelligence? And I've been working in this field for last several years, so it's definitely very, very interesting how this is going to be developed. And then concern, that was your other question,
right?
Is kind of similar, right? Like where the society is going to go with that. Because if we are given all these tools, are we going to become smarter or are we going to become dumber? Right? It's just a simple example. When the smartphones came about, I used to know phone numbers of all of my friends and all of my relatives and all of my family. Now I don't even know my own phone number anymore. Everything is in the phone. So kind of in that sense, we kind of became dumber. So what's going to happen with AI? Are we going to be with ChatGPT editing everything from articles to emails, right? Are we going to become better, learn from it, or we're going to be worse? So that is kind of a bit of a concern and curiosity at the same time. So we'll see how it develops.
Tell me more about yourself. So I want to know about your struggles, your aspirations, and contributions that I guess got you involved in the sustainable fashion tech or climate tech sector. Because like you said, you don't come from a fashion design background. You were an engineer by trade. I guess how did you kind of go about going into that?
Yeah, so it almost kind of happened accidentally. So I was working at a startup that got acquired by Walmart, and that was my first retail experience. And through that, I got exposed to different retail verticals. And then I joined a company that was in the secondhand clothing. So that kind of got me into more apparel space and secondhand space. And then my last company, it was an AI company. It was a deep tech company. And we were building AI for retailers, specifically for personalization and operational efficiencies. And about 90% of our customers were in apparel because it was based on computer vision. So, and through that, I kind of got to learn about issues and struggles that all the apparel retailers have. So OpenWardrobe kind of was born out of that experience. It was born during the pandemic. So I was really kind of looking at my own closet and seeing how full it was. And I still was struggling every day, like what to wear. And I thought, we don't need more clothes. We just need smarter tools and better ways to use what we already have. And even things like, I have this pair of jeans that I absolutely love, and a zipper broke. So what do I do with it? Do I toss them? Do I repair them? Where do I find the repair? So we're making it super, super easy. We have to manage basically.
Okay, interesting. Because you see like those different, because it kind of got convoluted when we were researching during our thesis. You have those secondhand platforms like Vinted
in Canada, at least we don't have it right now, or Depop and stuff like that. But again, it doesn't resolve the crux of the problem. It doesn't bind to like the whole, I guess there's also the degrowth mindset, but it doesn't really, like, it's still consumerism. So we don't have we don't have what you're saying, enough of that, to get people to dress more mindfully and to dress based on their body shape and size. So I think that's really interesting. And you're right, a lot of startups, I find a lot of climate tech startups came during COVID. So I think that's definitely interesting, and we need more of that. So I think it is pretty innovative what you're doing compared to like what's out there right now. So yeah, it's great. So what are the most important personal satisfactions and dissatisfactions connected with the fashion sector right now? Because you've been in it for a while. So what do you find the most satisfying and what do you find the most challenging in the sector itself?
Well, I can address satisfactions that I personally have with my company, and then we can go. I think the best way to put it is whenever I get an email or a message from a user saying that we either cured their shopping addiction, or they used to have a huge wardrobe and still felt like there's nothing. So that is definitely there. With the fashion industry, broadly speaking, I think, and it's kind of became a self-fulfilling prophecy with social media and fast fashion, is kind of trained to put value on newness. Like new means that it's like you always have to have something new. It's very, I think it kind of became the source of frustration for a lot of people, even if they don't consciously realize it. This pressure of always following the trends and always having, do I need to like really think about how I want to show up? So I think that's what's happening right now.
Okay. Yeah, no, it's definitely interesting. Like you said, because that's one issue I had when I was doing all this research, is like we had secondhand business models, but they were not really, resolving, the core problem. People were still, and sustainability itself became almost like a paradox. And how do you actually achieve that? So I think, and then AI is not something people were talking about as much. And I'm like, yeah, secondhand is not going to resolve hyperconsumption. So it's great. And then just to go on, so we're going to talk a bit more about sustainability now. So what would be your personal definition of sustainability and sustainable development, especially in regards to sustainable fashion and conscious consumerism?
The way we approach it at OpenWardrobe is from the consumer point of view, like from the consumer side, not from the industry side. The industry has ways to go, and I know that a lot of apparel brands are really trying to reduce water usage and have more natural dyes and less scraps and stuff like that. What we're trying to teach our users is that you don't have to sacrifice anything to be sustainable, right? If you can't afford to pay more for sustainable brands, even if you kind of have to, if not have to, but want to, when from a brand that's not considered to be sustainable, right? How do you personally make that item sustainable? And there are studies in industry, all kinds of reports showing that for a garment to be considered sustainable, it needs to be worn around 30 times. So if you consider the fact that most of us on average, wear a garment only 7 times and then discard it or maybe resell it in the best case scenario, we're not kind of leading this sustainable closet initiative, right? So what we're trying to do is we're trying to prolong the usage of what you already own by recommending you or showing you different ways of, wearing it, right, with different garments. We are helping you with, if you're done with it, you can resell it through the platform. We're not resellers, but we integrate with secondhand platforms. Or, if it needs a minor repair or alteration because your body changed, we help you do that as well.
Oh.
So that is kind of how we are approaching that. Most people don't realize that 30 or prolonging life of a garment by 9 months it decreases its environmental impact by 30%. Just because right. You used it more. right?
Yeah, I literally use that as the same statistic in my thesis.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
No,
So
so that's spot on.
so you know this exactly. So that's where we're coming from. We know that there are wonderful initiatives by many apparel brands, or there are other startups that are focused on the industry. We consciously decided to focus on the consumer.
Okay, interesting. If I find that you genuinely integrate those circular initiatives into the platform itself, like you said, you work with secondhand, and you have those like handful of different business models that are out there for sustainable fashion. I think there's not really anything that's tying them out there. At least it's the first I've heard of it with your platform, so that's really interesting. So is there any sustainable development goal that you particularly advocate for, and do you just find that those metrics still hold merit? So for example, when I was living in Sweden, I was surprised to find they don't go according to the SDGs when it comes to certain company mantras, but in Canada we very much do. So and again, it goes back to the whole idea of sustainable development being a paradox, and maybe a lot of fashion companies are not doing that and they're buying into the paradox. So it's very conflicting. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, we go by reducing overconsumption. So that's kind of and it comes from two ways. One is using what you already have and tools to show you and help you do that more. And the second angle is when you do buy something new, we give you tools to kind of do it more mindfully, more consciously, so that when you do buy it, you are likely to actually use it rather than return it.
Yeah, right. And like curating that capsule wardrobe that you're gonna like with your essential pieces that you'll reuse. Yeah. Okay, great. And then what would you say is OpenWardrobe's core values and intent? You talked a bit about the basic philosophy behind your organization, but do you want to talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So, I mean, our values is really using technology to empower people to dress more mindfully. That's kind of our mission, right? So that's where we're at. Really, everything that we're trying to put out there, the question that or the lens that we're looking at, everything that we're developing is it a tool that help users to dress more mindfully, whether it's an educational video, or it's an actual feature in the app, or it's a partnership that we're working on. Is this something that will help with the mission? So that's where we're at.
Okay, great. Yeah, perfect. And now we're getting on to the fun part, because we get to go more into AI, which I was looking forward to. So how might, I guess, artificial intelligence in general help create a more circular fashion system? And what does the term, I guess, circular fashion mean to you?
Yeah, so to me, circular fashion means that the life cycle of the garment is much, much longer it was, or if I'm just using it by myself. So meaning that it's extending the life for me, but when I'm done with it, there are other things that it can be used for. So if it's no longer usable as a garment, it can be recycled. If it's no longer needed by me, but can be used by somebody else, it can be resold or repaired, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of the circular fashion in my definition. Where AI can help is in many different ways. So first of all, prolonging the life through usage, it can kind of give you ideas of how you can use it in different ways. So how you can, we do not handle fit technologies. We don't do that, but there are other wonderful startups that are doing really great work with virtual try-ons and helping you actually visualize it on your body. Eventually it'll get into, is it actually going to fit you? So that's one angle of that. The second one is AI can definitely help for the brands, it can definitely help with being more conscious and smarter when planning assortment and planning inventory. So right now, especially with fashion and apparel, demand forecasting is a very difficult problem. What are people actually going to want, and what are they actually going to buy? So, and for a merchant, it's like the worst thing not making something that can be. So eventually, I think AI is going to be more helpful than it is right now in really providing the strong signals on what is going to be sold, so that they over-eliminated, but it's going to be reduced. And so it's assortment planning, is also inventory planning. So the difference is like what you produce and how many of that you produce, right? So that also can help, because it will help you. AI can help you understand better body shapes and sizes and how much of the plus size you need to make versus the petite size or whatever that is. So yeah, so that's definitely coming and coming fast.
Okay, interesting. And we'll get a bit more into the supply chain AI, but it would bind to things like, I guess, reverse logistics and buyback programs. I guess AI would help hone in on that too.
Absolutely, yeah. AI can be very good at predicting if something is going to be sold in the next 30 days. This are using, especially marketplaces that hold inventory.
Right.
And resell. So they do have algorithms that kind of guide them into, does this garment need to be returned to the seller, or can we accept it and hope, because we're going to sell it in 30 days. So all of that is already exists. It's just getting better every day.
Oh, that's exciting. And in what ways do you think AI may help the fashion industry as promote sustainable practices and cut down waste? Like you did mention some, but I'm just thinking like for the future outlook, what other beneficial effects there may be.
Yeah, I think helping with design, help is even optimizing material use. Like how do you cut materials so there is less waste? Again, I've seen technologies already out there that make that happen. And again, with just kind of guiding designers and merchants in deciding what's going to be popular and what's going to sell.
Yeah, and I think too, it almost acts like a extra filter when it comes to like those different, because it gets convoluted with all those organic and sustainable certifications. And I even learned the B Corp is not genuinely, at least when I was, maybe it's more in Sweden, they think that it's not legitimate as much with like compared to the Nordic EcoSwan, which makes sense when you look more into the B Corp. I guess things like AI might help bolster that and kind of catch the greenwashing when it comes to these different fashion brands, which I find it gets convoluted when you start looking into like greenwashing and everything. So I think that's really cool that AI could potentially help with that. So what are the main sustainability issues facing the fashion industry, and how might AI help to resolve them?
Well, I think overproduction is one of the biggest ones, right? How do we help with producing just enough? It's probably a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. But reducing overproduction and making sure that whatever is produced is used in some way, instead of ending up on landfill or burned, or so that's one of the things where AI can definitely help. Other initiatives like smarter materials and all of that. I mean, there is some use for AI, but I think it's really going to help with waste reduction. That's where the real power is going to.
Okay. Great. And like you mentioned earlier, like that is true, because I used to work for a climate tech company, and they were just promoting sustainable fashion brands, and it's too overt. Like it's more for the affluent that can afford these more higher end sustainable brands. So I think AI kind of like bolsters access and participation to the mainstream, which is really nice. And encourage people to choose those brands. So that's great. So how can the fashion supply chain be made more transparent and traceable with AI? So you likely see supply chain problems. You mentioned some of them already, but do you see any others that AI could potentially correct?
Well, there are companies out there that use less of an AI, more of a blockchain type of technologies to create this transparency and traceability throughout the supply chain.
Right.
It's making its way all the way to consumers. So there are some garments that are being produced with either QR code or some sort of identifier, which we as consumers can scan and then see what it's made from, where it's made, how sustainably it's made, how responsibly it's made. So that's one thing. And then, of course, if all of that information is available, then it's very easy for AI to kind of scan it and recommend something for me as a consumer, where I can, what I should buy according to my style, personality, and my beliefs in sustainability. So from the consumer side, it's there. From the supply chain side, it's really around optimization. So if we have this traceability, then using AI for identifying the gaps or proposing, there's an opportunity there for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting that you can actually use AI to kind of check in with like the stakeholders across the divide of the supply chain. So, from for example, organic cotton farmers in India to like, the factory and where they design the garments, to working with the retailers. And like you said, to identify those gaps and really hone in on like areas you need to bolster and to make it more ethical, I guess, as well. So that's really exciting. Do you want to give an example, just for our listeners out there, in which I guess you use technology to integrate sustainable practices? Because I know, interior design. So I know you mentioned a little bit about it, but do you want to talk a bit more about the real world experience of it, so they have a better idea?
On consumer side or on the supply side?
I would say both. If you couldn't talk about both, that would be good.
Yeah. So, well, again, I can give you examples from my previous company, because we did specifically work on AI for retail. So one of the brands that we worked with, one of the Italian brands, they had not a huge catalog every season, but it was bigger than kind of a more luxury brands, right? Like luxury brands typically kind of put out maybe 100 products every season, if that. They were having maybe 1,500 products every season. So the problem that they were facing, and that's where our AI helped them, is they designed everything and then they were completely vertically integrated, right? So from the designers all the way down to the store managers and salespeople. So when the designer came up with the concept, and then by the time it went to the store, it was typically 18-month cycle. So there were a couple of things. One is, in 18 months, do we know 18 months before what's going to be desirable by consumers? So that's one question. Another question is, when we are coming up with a concept, is there a way to test it out with consumers before we actually start producing it? Can I help there? And then the third one was, how can we give the data on the garment before it was produced? Planners to figure out, should we make it? How much of that we should make it? And should we put it in our collection? So it was kind of several different questions. And where AI helped is in all of those three stages. So first, we did help with the design stage, predicting 18 months in advance for the trends and consumers' kind of wants and wants is difficult, right? So the best you can do is kind of, and by the way, it's really always a question, do we predict or do we make something and we just kind of, what's a trend, right? Like, is it predicting a trend, or the trend already exists and then everybody kind of follows it? So there are some trendsetters, so to speak, right? So we approached it from the point of view, okay, we can predict to a degree, and then we can kind of give signals that, this may be popular because this is what we're seeing right now in social media or in publications, on runways, stuff like that. So that was one. The second one was, how can we start testing it with the consumer before the garment is produced? Can AI create a garment on the body so it looks like a model is wearing the real thing, so that we can actually test the potential demand? So we did that. And then the third aspect was, okay, so now we kind of tested the demand, or we tested not the actual demand, but we tested that people will like it, right? But we do not know how many of that is going to be sold and how it's actually going to. So now we need to give all of this data to our specialists, to the planners and the merchants, to actually figure out the quantities and how it's going to be produced. So we know the demand is there, so the liking is there, so how much of that we need to make. So we needed to create enough metadata about the garment, again, before the garment even exists, to propagate it down the line, all the way to analysts and even ad designers and people in marketing and others is even produced, even before the samples are produced. So we did all of that. So they did see improvements in their efficiencies, operational efficiencies, and they did see reduction. I don't know the actual numbers, unfortunately, I don't have them, but they did see reduction in their overproduction.
That's amazing. The 18 months in advance, that beats what any influencer or anyone else can do. That's amazing. And I had a question, because I was just curious and prying more into that. Can these big corporations, these big name fashion brands, H&M and Zara, as you know, one of them has 52 micro seasons per year, and they're really big on fast fashion. Can they use, I guess, AI in a more malevolent rather than benevolent way if they have access to these like tools. What do you think about that? Because I was just curious.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, 52 micro seasons means that you're trying to sell something new to every single person every week. Like it's kind of creating this vicious circle of the new, and then you don't wear it for as long as you need to for it to be sustainable. So yeah, of course they can. Of course they can. And I'm sure they do. I'm sure those companies have like pretty sizable tech departments that are very well versed in AI by now. So, yeah.
Okay, but I guess it's a matter of educating the consumers on what sustainable fashion is, and that's what you're aiming to. So thank you for the example. That was super helpful for those that are probably unfamiliar with AI in fashion. So now we're going more into fashion AI in fashion production and design. So how can the manufacturing of clothing using AI to streamline operations cut down on energy use? So yeah, like just more, I guess, optimization, like you mentioned, efficiency optimization. Do you want to talk more about that?
Again, from where my expertise is, it's not necessarily the operational side, but what I have seen is really optimizing material use and reducing waste. So that's what I've kind of seen working pretty well for some manufacturers. There are smart cutting machines out there that are not only optimizing material, but they're optimizing energy use as well. I've seen them in action, and they're very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of innovation is happening there in really just patterning and cutting material for reduced. So definitely everything is AI enabled in that space.
Okay, perfect, great. And so you kind of already talked a bit about this, but what do you think about using AI-powered technologies to reduce overproduction, which you mentioned earlier, and to provide that individualized fashion recommendation? So yeah, I'm just curious more about those customized, tailored solutions and those demand forecasts, because I know like some like business models are doing that in fashion, but if you want to talk more about that, that would be great.
Yeah, so knowing what people have and how they use it, having that data set and that knowledge, is where we are coming in, right? Not working with brands yet, but this is the vision.
Okay, perfect. Just to mention on that productivity and creativity, I think the younger generation will definitely jump more onto this because you've seen it, especially with gamers. When you play a lot of these RPGs, like these role-playing simulation games, your avatar, your character, you can design, you know, their wardrobe and their hairstyle. Hogwarts Legacy is one example because I wanted to get a certain hairstyle and then I imitated that. So it's kind of nice, and I think they'll definitely be jumping on board onto something like this. So how may AI be applied to produce more, I guess, varied and inclusive designs that accommodate like that diverse palette that you mentioned of body shapes and tastes? Because I know I've spoken to some designers, they're like, especially the smaller scale business models where they're focusing on body positivity by designing for gender neutrality, which was like made me really curious to learn more about that. Do you want to talk more about that AI powered customization?
I mean, yeah, AI can definitely play a role in that. I think it's more conscious choices and decisions by designers and brands to do the gender neutral or size inclusive. I think many more are doing that already because they're recognizing that that is a market that they're completely missing on.
Right.
And they're definitely helping there. So where AI can help, and this is what we did in my previous company, is really helping brands to showcase that they are gender neutral or size inclusive or body positive. The way we did it is, again, through generating content.
Okay.
So the garment is photographed once or not even photographed. It's just, garment is generated, and then through AI we can create content of many different images of that, or even the garment on models of different genders, shapes, sizes, what have you, so that people can see that this garment can be worn by somebody that looks like me, them, right? So that's it's less more on the production side, more on the sell side. Creating those photo shoots and those videos in real life is very, very expensive, especially in the US and in Western Europe, it costs a lot of money to bring the model into the studio, dress and photographer, makeup, hair, like all of that. So AI definitely democratized that whole thing. So as I said, we were doing it in my previous company like 7-8 years ago. Now I'm seeing this everywhere. Many websites I can actually go and tell, oh, it's AI generated. But it's very, very helpful. It's very helpful. You can actually choose a model that kind of looks like you. Pretty soon we're going to have, upload a picture of yourself and you can just see how it visualizes. But even for retailers and brands to make that feature available, you are communicating to the consumer that, yes, we are addressing you as a person, your size, your shape, your skin color, your height, whatever that is.
Yeah, no, I think that's really amazing because the next big trend, at least in digital marketing, is going to be those well-known AI influencers. It's not going to be typically, the person, but who created the avatar. Mm-hmm. And it's going to be things like social shopping. So I think you're really very ahead of the game. And I think that's really amazing. And you're right also on unisex design, because I noticed mainstream fashion, of course, is just it's in that binary of either or. So we don't really we see man and woman, we don't see enough unisex designs. I think that AI can definitely, kind of unveil that route, and we need to go that route, I find. So that's amazing. So thanks for sharing. And now going more into ethical considerations. So let's go into more business models, because sustainable business models is something I'm curious about. So as you know, when I did my thesis on sustainable fashion, I came across a bunch of different sustainable business models. So everything from permanent collection, made to order, pre-order, non-new ownership model, a service-based model, waste-led design, small scale, and so the social enterprise model, which I'm sure all of this you somehow are going to integrate, hopefully, which is exciting. So, but a lot of people don't, it's getting better, but maybe a lot of people don't know, because it gets kind of convoluted. And I find that I saw a lot of issues with that because I was looking at different startups, the three, startups, SMEs, and then bigger corporations. And I did find that SMEs are, depending on what combination of business models they have, they tend to be the most innovative and sustainable. But there's still this, I think, misconception in the industry. So hopefully AI will resolve that. So what are some misconceptions about sustainable strategy within the fashion sector? And how do you find OpenWardrobe can address them?
I don't know if OpenWardrobe today can address them. As I mentioned, we are focused on consumers. So we can provide data on ownership and usage of garments. Okay. So with that data, if we were to become our own brand of clothing, right? With that data, we could create collections of garments that address needs of our customers specifically. And then every garment would feel like it was made specifically for you. Maybe it would be made specifically for you based on not just your size and your shape and your colors, but also on what you already own and what are the gaps in your wardrobe and how you can do more, right? So we're not doing that yet, but if we work on a brand, this is what we would do. If you think about it, even 150 years ago, we didn't go to shops and bought ready to wear. We went to a dressmaker, and that dressmaker would know everything about us because it would be the same one that we went to, our mother went to, our grandmother went to, right? So it would be somebody who knew exactly what we own. It would be made specifically for us, and it would be worn for many, many years. And when we get tired of it, we would take it back to the dressmaker, and she would refashion it into something else, right? So I think with what we are trying to build, this would be kind of where we would go to. So it's more personalized, more individualized, based on what we know about you, what we know, what you own, how you use it, and stuff like that. So that's what we would do.
Okay, interesting. And you already kind of shared about your business model and the different strategies, but do you want to share a bit more about that and the different strategies and practices you implement?
So we're building an ecosystem and integrating with various services. So that's kind of our business model. We're helping people to manage their clothing through this various services. And we do have a premium membership that people can subscribe to. They have just a little bit of extra, but most of this is, for now, at least free to use.
That's good to know. I'll be sure to link to that if anyone wants to sign up, that and they trial it out. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And then I'm curious about this one, because we talked a bit about the paradox. So how do you balance your sustainable goals while also striving towards economic growth? And it's, again, a challenge considering how, especially, of course, that fashion comes from that take, make, waste model. So how will you ensure with OpenWardrobe, I guess, that your sustainability goals align with your business objectives? And do you have any non-negotiable sustainable principles you're going to uphold, basically?
We do not balance anything. It's our sustainability is built into the and as I mentioned before, whenever we are trying to decide, do we need to offer this feature, or do we need to pursue this partnership, it's all from the goal of and the lens of, is that going to help our consumer to further their mindful dressing? So it's really built into the whole idea of OpenWardrobe.
Okay, great. And I guess it kind of from the get-go, then you kind of look at those environmental, social, and economic objectives, I guess it is. That's how you achieve your sustainable aims, because it's the intention.
Exactly. It's the way we designed, and the goal that we're pursuing is reducing overconsumption. So that's one.
Right. Okay, great. So I just want to go into the ethical side of things, because there's obviously a lot of fear mongering, and I don't know if that's just mainstream media around AI in general. So I guess for this, for the ethical considerations regarding data privacy and possible employment displacement, which everyone's been freaking out about, how do you feel about, I guess, the ethical ramifications of AI in the fashion industry? So do you want to raise awareness on any ethical issues that you may be foreseeing?
Specifically to AI?
Yeah. And fashion?
Not really. I mean, the one thing that we're dealing with and very conscious about is we have people's data. It's nothing personally identifiable, but we have data about your closets, right? So how do we deal with that? And then how do we be protective of that? And then you and only you have access to it, unless you decide to share, because we do have a sharing capabilities. You can open your friends and stylists and whomever. And of course, from AI perspective, data is so we're protective of what we have. Of course, yeah, AI in fashion is really fed on catalogs and social media. So the one ethical consideration potentially would be misrepresentation. If certain brand skews towards certain gender or certain ethnicity or something like that, AI will just perceive it as that, not be objective. So that's the only thing. So data and how AI is trained is what everybody needs to be concerned about.
Yeah, I think people often forget AI is just a tool. You're still the driver in the seat. You're still a creative mindset behind it. Some don't want to see it from the other perspective.
You put it very well, actually. It's just a tool. It's a signal. It's not a decision maker. It's not the end of it. It's just the tool, to use it as a tool.
Right. Okay, great. And how can AI-driven design and production procedures be made to comply with ethical sourcing and fair labor standards? So you've heard of things like fair trade and stuff like that. But I'm curious about this, especially with how it's gotten convoluted, like I mentioned, with all these certifications. Do you have any thoughts on that?
AI could potentially, anything that has to do with fraud and unfair use or unfair practices. Again, if there is data about it, AI could probably help uncover it. But at the end of the day, it's a human problem. I don't think it's an AI problem.
Right. Yeah. I guess it would help to get consumers to allow them to better vote with their dollars and file those grievances with these companies, at least.
Yep. Yes.
It's a starting point. So I think there's definitely potential there.
Yep.
And what part do you think things like GOTS, GOTS and fair trade certifications have in advancing ethical and sustainable fashion in general? I guess it's building on the last question. Do you find that AI will help in any way in the foreseeable future?
Again, just making people aware, because what AI is really good for at is kind of summarizing or expanding, right? So if that data is available and that can be available to people in a way that they can understand, AI can help with that. Awareness is the first thing. That's, I think, what that can definitely help.
Yeah, and you have great things like Fashion Revolution, which have really changed the game. And I find that AI can take on to these like social campaigns and really offer support. So that's great. So I'm curious about the public policy. I know you're more on climate tech, but what are current and potential policy interventions that can promote sustainable practice and practices and trends for fashion and AI? Because in Canada, it might be similar to the US, but do you have any thoughts on that?
I think Europe is actually leading that effort. It's not. Yeah, Europe is leading, and what Europe has done in the past several years, that they passed several regulations that promote traceability in supply chain, and there are companies that are now required to put some sort of a tag or QR code or something on the garment that the consumer can scan and then look at where it was made, how it was made, what materials were used, and make informed decisions. It's all kinds of technologies brought together. It's blockchain, it's AI. There are several startups that are doing wonderful work in that area. And in North America, especially in the US, we need to take that into account and follow that lead.
Yeah, they're definitely the role models. They set the precedent in the EU. And so we'll just wrap up now. So do you have any final or sage advice for our listeners out there who might be interested in sustainable fashion and AI?
The only thing I would say is that we don't need to feel like we absolutely have to be conscious of what we're buying and only buying sustainable brands. It's can afford it and care to explore and research that. But we have a lot of power just with managing our own closets, is what we already have, and how we're buying new things. So that's what we're teaching our consumers, our users at OpenWardrobe.
Yeah, I think it's very authentic with OpenWardrobe. You teach users how to shop their wardrobe, and we need more of that. And I think it's going to bolster all these different business models that I mentioned. Yeah, great. Thanks for sharing, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks so much for tuning in to yet another eye-opening episode of Sustainable You. Again, this is an extraordinary and engaging info series whose purpose is to make sustainable development and sustainability accessible to the average person in their quest to quench their knowledge on environmentalism. Be sure to leave your feedback by liking this week's released edition and by subscribing to this podcast. Again, any love from our followers is much appreciated. Signing off until next time.